Disclaimer! The following episode contains spoilers for Obi-Wan Kenobi. Don't go crying to your mum if we spoil it for you. You've been warned. Welcome to Podcapers, the official podcast for Place to Hang Your Cape. And this week, this isn't the series you're looking for. Okay, kind of is, but it isn't. It goes up and down. You know what I mean. We're talking about Obi-Wan Kenobi! Cue the music! Hello there, Capers, and as I said, welcome to Podcapers, the official podcast of A Place to Hang Your Cape. My name's Scott James Merridew, and this is the show where we talk about various geek and nerd-related topics, and I'm joined each week by a very special different guest. Returning again for the second week in a row, it's Craig Wexler!
Hey, how we doing out there? Excuse me.
I don't think either of us are doing pretty well. I've basically gotten over my cold that I had last week, but I'm still not 100%. Like, my sinuses aren't all that great. But I'm getting over there, and you're coughing as well. We're all dying.
Yeah, we're all going to hell in a handbasket.
And we will talk about all of that in a second. Before we need to do that, we need to talk about how we're going to be talking about later Obi-Wan Kenobi. I was really looking forward to this series because I don't know about you, but I read a Kenobi book, a novel, based on a similar, and I mean very loosely similar premise. It literally, this series takes up about 5 years?
10 years.
10 years. 10 years after the events of Order 66. And the book that I read took up like a couple of months afterwards, where he first gets on Tatooine and him building a life for himself there. I believe that's now no longer canon, though. And I really enjoyed that novel. And so I wanted to see something similar from the show. That's not what I got. Now, I am a big believer in taking what I get and judging it for its own merit, and not by comparing it to my own expectations. You know, I judge what we got, not what I want to get. Having said that, I have an overactive imagination, and I could imagine quite a few other stories that might be better than what we got.
Better or worse, it's what we got, and there were pros and cons to it. I thought there were a lot of pros. I thought there were a lot of cons. We can dive right in if you want.
Well, we will do that eventually, but before we do that, we've got to do the news. So, what to talk about? We could talk about how Leigh Whannell is in negotiations to direct a Green Hornet movie. We could talk about how Guy Ritchie has been suckered in once again by the allure of Disney's paycheck to do the live-action Hercules movie.
Oh God, I didn't even hear about that.
Well, imagine that. He didn't get it. Why Guy Ritchie? Seriously, I like him. I think he's a good director, but I could just tell that when he did Aladdin, it was a paycheck movie, sure. And this doesn't seem to be any difference. At least Aladdin is a better... it's Hercules, rather, is a better film than Aladdin was, at least in my opinion, the original animated film. But we're not going to talk about that. We're not going to talk about that because, frankly, there's something else much more important than any one film, any one TV series, anything like that we need to talk about. Because this, I don't want to say it affects all of us, because frankly it affects some of us disproportionately to others, and this is not a political show. I've made that very clear numerous times. I have given my opinions on certain things, but this is not a place for current affairs. But when you've got something this far-reaching, this impactful, and this so unconscionably, unjustifiably wrong, in my opinion, we have to talk about it, and that's the Supreme Court of the United States overturning, whatever you want to call it, Roe v. Wade. Now, it's safe to say that I am A, not an American, B, I am a cis man. So this does not something that is going to affect me, because I neither live in the country where it's happening, nor am I biologically wired to get pregnant or give birth or anything like that. So, in my opinion, counts for less. I have an opinion, I'm allowed to share it, but it counts for less because no uterus, no opinion. That's just how I believe it works. But having said that, again, let's focus on the fact that I'm not an American. And Craig, you are. May I please ask you if you feel comfortable sharing what your reaction has been to all of this?
Yeah, absolutely. I have to admit it, I hate to say it, but there was definitely a time in my life where I was like, that could never happen. They could never possibly overturn Roe v. Wade. Don't worry about it. It's never going to happen. And you know what? I was wrong. It's terrible. As my ex-girlfriend likes to say, she likes to tell me I hate America, which is not necessarily true. I just really oftentimes hate our government. I hate taking steps backwards. We just took a, I don't know, 40, 50 year step backwards. And on top of that, the Supreme Court, Clarence Thomas is the one leading the charge here, and he has already suggested making other steps backwards, including once again outlawing gay marriage, as well as some other things. It's really terrible. I think the most frightening part for me, and again, like you said, no uterus, no opinion. So I don't want to say too much because, like yourself, I'll never be pregnant. I am an American, however, and I do have a lot of female friends in this country that it is an issue for. I lost my train of thought there. I'm so sorry.
I mean, it's here's the thing, there's nothing about that is anything less than horrifying and frightening, even if it doesn't affect you personally. I mean, I don't want to go on about how the fact that if it could happen in America, it could happen over here, because here's the thing. Britain, in my opinion, it is just my opinion, is objectively, by every measurable standard, a better functioning nation than the United States of America, in my opinion. If you disagree with me, I completely get that. I'm sure you have good, valid reasons for that, but that's just my opinion. However,
I don't know enough about the way Britain functions to make an assessment.
I mean, it barely functions, but it functions, and even that there's better than what I see from the United States. But then again, a lot of that comes from the news, and that's
I'm sorry,
maybe one-sided.
I remember what I was going to say. I'm sorry. She likes to say I hate America. I hate the government, not necessarily every single person, but we have so many fundamental problems here. The idea that somebody should be put into a position for life. And that's how the Supreme Court works here. Once you get in, you're in for life no matter what. The idea that wouldn't corrupt even the best of people is absurd. And they have so many people on the Supreme Court that were never good to begin with. It's a problem where there should be term limits for politicians, and there should be no for life positions in the country. That's just absurd.
I mean, in that aspect, it's very much similar to what we have over here, because we're no better, because we've got the House of Lords, which is a lifetime appointment. It's for the peerage. It's the last remnant of the aristocracy desperately trying to remain relevant. And sadly, they can have meaningful impact on the way our society runs, despite the fact that they were not elected. And that has happened in recent years, and people are fucking pissed off about it. But and it's such an invasion of body autonomy, and it's all based on this, in my opinion, I'm not a political expert, my opinion, that this nonsense about states' rights. In fairness, the country that you're in works very different from my country, but if you're going to go that far for states' rights, why not just make each and every single state a sovereign nation at that point? What's the point of being part of a nation if each and every single one can be so drastically, so impactfully different from each other?
I have to say that I know a lot of people that really believe in the next 50 years, parts of this country are going to break apart. We're calling it the downfall of an empire, and empires do fall.
Yeah.
And America's,
take it from me, they definitely do. Can speak from experience.
Right, and America's been out here for 250 years, bullying the rest of the world, growing an empire. And yeah, I wouldn't necessarily be surprised if it breaks off that way. I saw a map, a diagram breaking off the states that are now saying abortion will be illegal, the ones that are saying it's going to stay legal, and the ones that are now going to expand abortion rights. And it's weird because it's broken up into weird sections. Like the whole West Coast is is keeping it legal. There's an area in the very northeast, like New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania. Also,
Vermont, I imagine, will be doing
what's
that.
that?
I imagine
Yeah,
Vermont.
Vermont. Yeah, the northeast for sure. Vermont, very liberal area. And then there's a couple other places sporadically, but then there's this huge chunk in the middle of the country that is just like, yeah, nope, we're going to overturn Roe v. Wade, and it's, I mean, there's not enough to say about it. I mean, there's
No, certainly nothing that should deserves to be on our silly little pop culture podcast. You're
right.
absolutely right. It's just, I had to acknowledge it. I had to, because it's just so heartbreaking. And I mean, here's the thing. America is, in my opinion, it's a first world country that's been run like it's in the third world.
It's a broken country.
It's in so many ways. And unfortunately, that brokenness directly impacts so many people's lives. I mean, this is going to kill people.
Yeah,
People will die because
Agreed.
of this. Or their bodies will be completely devastated, or they'll be forced to take care of children that they never wanted and cannot take care of. So either they're going into the system, or they're getting taken care of by someone who knows that they can't take care of a child, but is now being forced to. And that's what it is. This is not about abortion. This is about whether or not you are forcing people
it's
to give
controlling
birth.
Women. First of all, it's feeding the system. The U.S. government will always want the population to be rising, so that they have more drones to work at McDonald's, to enter the military. And they want the babies born, and the second they're born, they don't give a crap about them. I have a lot of female.
George Carlin fucking George Carlin fucking called it.
He absolutely did. George Carlin, good reference.
I mean, that's what everyone was sharing that. And I could go on, but frankly, I don't think either of us are, with the rest of the world, the best people to talk about this. So all I would say is that if you're from America and you're scared about this in any way, or even if you're not from America, you live a place which has similar problems, or you're worried those problems are going to leak over here, and they can, because like Britain is not special. Britain is not perfect. Britain is deeply, deeply flawed, and what happens over there can happen over here. We've got our own problems of our own economy and fucking cost of living crisis and everything like that happening. So I'll just say this. If you are scared, just know that you're not alone. There are other people who are with you. And I wish I could say that progress happens in a straight line, but sadly it doesn't. There are people willing to just take you back. So it would be patronizing for me to say, don't let them, but just know that this is not over. Bad times are ahead, but we can make it through it. You can make it through it as long as you don't give up. I'm sure you don't need me to tell you that, but just don't give up.
Agreed.
I'm sorry we have to talk about this, but we have to talk about this. And now, as if this day could not get any worse, here are some ads.
And now we're pleased to bring you our feature presentation.
Being political is fun.
Oh, okay. We will move past this now. As heartbreaking as that is to talk about, we are going to talk about something fun. We're going to talk about Obi-Wan Kenobi, and we're going to have a good time doing it. Craig, did you enjoy the show?
I did. I enjoyed the show. I'm an avid Star Wars fan. I've got Star Wars tattoos. I've been a fan basically since birth. I was born, I think, two weeks after the original movie came out in the theater. I thought it was great. I'm always going to nitpick stuff. There are plenty of things that I could say, oh, I didn't like this and I didn't like that. But overall, I enjoyed seeing Ewan McGregor play Obi-Wan Kenobi again. I thought Moses Ingram was absolutely amazing as Reva. Even at the end, I thought the guy playing Owen was pretty good. Um,
Well, that's the okay. So here's the thing. That's Joel Edgerton, and I've never been a huge fan of his, but he can act. He rarely chooses to do so, but he can act, and I can't help but wonder if he giving him more screen time, a little bit more characterization and stuff like that, if the whole show was like him and Ben Kenobi going out and facing some stuff, then I don't know. Maybe that might have been.
It probably would have been a better show. I admit. I'll tell you this: at the very end, I was super disappointed. They basically left it exactly the way they left it at the end of episode 3.
Yeah,
I don't know if
I mean,
we
always knew it needed to get back to that point, and maybe like 1 or 2 character details have changed, but ultimately not that much has. And I get why, because we need to get back to the point for episode 4.
Right.
This is a side story. This is meant to fill and bridge in a gap. But the problem is the bits that it fills in are few and far between, and the rest is just a different plot and a different narrative and a different bit of character development, which is fine if it isn't slightly all over the place. But we're skipping ahead right now. Let's just start right at the beginning with the fact that this is all directed by Deborah Chow. She did a fantastic job, in my opinion.
She did. I've noticed that there's a lot of female directors getting some action on Disney, both Star Wars and Marvel. And I haven't seen a bad episode yet, really. Deborah Chow did a great job with this. Everything looked very clean, very well cut. Oh, yeah. It was a great show, really. It's Star Wars is always put up on this pedestal where people want this show or this movie to change their lives, and I'm sorry, it's never going to do that. But it was a great show. I enjoyed it.
You know, it's interesting you bring that up, because actually I watched once a lecture that George Lucas did on touching on that very nature, because he basically said, and I'll bore it down to his bare essential elements, but he basically said there's a big difference between joy and pleasure. You will never get the pleasure of buying your very first car again, because that moment has gone. You can... or was it, did he say it was joy? Basically, he said, don't try and recreate pleasure, try and create joy. Right. Because we're never going to watch Star Wars for the first time again. It's never going to change our lives again. So we need to just find a way to keep on moving forward. And basically, he said it a lot better than I ever could. He's actually a really insightful guy, frankly. And I think that's basically what the approach that we need to take with this now. This is going to be not going to change our minds or blow the souls out of our bodies, but it is going to be a bit of fun.
It's going to be a bit of fun. And again, going into it, you know that episode 4 is going to happen. You know Darth Vader is going to live. You know Obi-Wan Kenobi is going to live. You know Leia's going to live. You know Luke's going to live. You know Owen and Beru are all going to live, because they're all in briefly in episode 4. So don't expect there to be this huge reveal, this timeline changing event. Not
that they don't try to do that. Right. There is one thing. We'll get into that. Okay, so let's start with the actual plot of episode 1. It is, as you say, 10 years after Order 66. Although actually we do start with Order 66 in progress, because you get to see like the Jedi Temple with an instructor teaching a bunch of younglings. And as we all know, nothing bad happens to the younglings. Oh,
honey, you've got a big storm coming.
Immediately, because then clones fucking burst in and start killing them all, and a bunch of things. What I love about this scene, though, is in the background when the younglings decided to run away, you can see there's a bunch of other Jedi in the background, and they're slowly being picked off one by one until finally, by the last second of the shot, they're all gone, and there are no more lightsabers in the shot.
Right.
It's really cool.
Yeah, it's done really well. That's the thing. You got to look at it from two different sides. Like, this scene was done so well. Like you just said, you've got Jedis slowly being picked off one by one. In the back of my mind, I'm still like, man, I don't understand how the clones were able to overwhelm the Jedi, because I've seen Jedi take out thousands of droids at a time. But the scene is shot so well.
I mean, here's the thing. In fairness, George Lucas described that very well. He said, like, oh, the dark side clouded everything. It's limiting our ability to see into the future, things like that. Maybe dulling their reflexes, things like that. So it's all set up. And you could just argue overwhelming numbers and the fact they've been whittled down so much. I don't know. Maybe they haven't had their coffee. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows?
There could be lots of reasons. But we cut from that to... honestly, probably equally our main character. I was going to say more, but it's probably equally our main character, as is Kenobi, third sister, aka Reva.
Right. Her story was great. Honestly, I think she might be the best part of the whole series. Her backstory is great. Her anger is so very justified and pure. And I mean, she's got this mission, and nobody knows about. Nobody's onto her, really.
That is true. You're not even the audience. I never saw it coming. And in fairness, it was set up. Well, I was about to say pretty well, but I don't know what's set up. Here's my problem with Reva. Okay, acting top tier, brilliant. Moses Ingram does a fantastic job. I liked the twist. I like what they did with the character. Here's the problem, though. This could easily have just been all about her. This whole show, she was almost like too big a character. Almost, I kind of wish that I'm sure we will see more of her, but I don't know. She even needed more time one-on-one with Obi-Wan Kenobi, or she needed to have her own show, one or the other, because it was almost just like too much. And even then, that's a bit of a problem because about her being, a Jedi apprentice who then later on got betrayed and twisted into something dark, but then rebelled against a former master. Isn't that basically what Asajj Ventress went through?
Yes, absolutely. I didn't even think about that watching the show, but yeah.
Well, I'm a classic overthinker. That's my fault.
But was Ventress ever a Padawan? Was she a...
No, I don't think so. No.
Either. Reva was at the time. She's got the best reason of all people to hate Darth Vader, right? She's...
all the more reason for it to be her solo story of a journey of vengeance, or have a more closely, like, what if they got trapped together due to circumstance and they have to work together for something, but she's like, ooh, dark side, but he's like, hey, come back to, like, maybe he sees a bit of a redemption arc for him, like maybe I couldn't help Anakin, but I can help her, or something. That just wasn't... there was just something missing there. But again, I should judge it based on what we got, not on what I wanted. But we'll move on for that for the moment. She's a Grand Inquisitor, along with fifth brother and third sister. I think fifth brother we have seen before in something animated at one time or another. In Rebels, along with the Grand Inquisitor, no longer played by Jason Isaacs in Rebels, but now Rupert Friend. Okay, we can't get that British actor, but can we get this British actor? Were they both in The Death of Stalin? Yes, they were. You see that film?
No. Wait, say it again.
Death of Stalin. It's this great film by Armando Iannucci, who created, like, In the Thick of It, In the Loop, and Veep. And it's sort of a slightly comedic retelling of the events that followed the death of Joseph Stalin.
I totally have to watch that.
And it's so good. It's so really good. Okay, so here's the thing that's going to make you want to watch it. Steve Buscemi is Khrushchev.
Jesus, I have to watch this now. I love Buscemi. He does no wrong. He can do no wrong in my mind.
He doesn't do anything wrong in this. It was absolutely fantastic. And in that one, Rupert Friend is the son of Joseph Stalin, and Jason Isaacs is General Zhukov. He's like this World War II hero who speaks with like a Yorkshire accent. That's the great thing. All the actors in this movie have their actual native accents. So Khrushchev speaks with Steve Buscemi's, I think it's like a New York accent, and Jason Isaacs just speak with his northern accent because he's from the north, and that's fantastic. That's brilliant.
That sounds absolutely hilarious. I have to check it out. Yeah, I was disappointed. I would have loved to seen Jason Isaacs play Grand Inquisitor in the live action. That would have been great because really, he's more known as a live action actor than a voice actor. I mean, I don't know if you're a Star Trek fan, but season 1
Oh
of
yeah.
Disco. I like to call it Disco, but Star Trek Discovery. Season 1, he's absolutely brilliant.
Well, it's equally outdated as Disco is.
Outdated. It's only 4 or 5 years old, 6 years. I don't know.
And yet it feels like so much longer.
I love Disco. I think it's great. Not the music disco, but Star Trek. I like to call it Disco.
Okay. Fair enough. I don't know what else you would call it. That seems pretty good to me. Yeah, he was in that. He's been plenty of other films and things like that, like Death of Stalin. And that would have been cool. But, scheduling conflicts, maybe he didn't want to do all the makeup and stuff. And Rupert Friend is a fantastic actor. And he did a good job, I thought. I'm not going to compare the two of them because they specifically said I didn't watch it because I want to, as an actor, I want to do my own thing. And, I respect that, but at the same time, it's just like, yeah, but this isn't like your own creation, or this isn't like an original IP. This is a Star Wars thing, and it's a character that's already been established. You need to conform to a certain thing. But I thought he still did a good job. And
I didn't dislike him at all. I thought he filled the role adequately. I was just, I'm that guy that is always going to be, oh, I want this because of this reason. I want Jason Isaacs because he's who I know the Inquisitor to be from Rebels. But no, he didn't do a bad job playing the role of Inquisitor. One thing I got to say that was a little disappointing about the show, I would think that if somebody is impaled by a lightsaber, that would be the end for them. But apparently
it depends where you impale them, if you manage to miss all the vital organs. But we will get to that. What we will do is, though, we will start by talking about how they are hunting down Jedi, and they have gone to Tatooine. Love that little Jawa. And they find this Jedi named Nari on Tatooine, and the Grand Inquisitor gives a big speech about how, the Jedi will always reveal themselves because they're just so good. Is that something you really want to be broadcasting? I thought the whole point of the Empire was just like they were saying the Jedi were actually bad and they tried to destroy the old regime, and that's why they were hunting them, because they were secretly all terrorists. Not that they were so good. That's like saying, oh, that's the thing with Al-Qaeda. They're so altruistic. Something about that doesn't add up.
It doesn't.
It
doesn't add up. You're right. Because
even if you believe your own rhetoric or not, he's saying this right in front of a lot of people, and I just wanted someone in the back to say, "Hang on a minute, I thought the Jedi were all supposed to be bad." Oh well, they are, but you said they were good. Go to sleep.
This isn't the conversation you're looking for.
This isn't the conversation I'm looking for. What conversation am I looking for? I don't know, something about the meaning of life. Okay.
I want a death stick.
I want a death stick. Anyway, so they hunt down this Jedi. They've ended up killing, but this Jedi, Nari, ends up encountering Ben Kenobi, played by the ever still handsome Ewan McGregor.
I love Ewan McGregor.
Who doesn't? I mean, he's the pride of Scotland, first of all, and he is just so great and so good. And he sort of slips back into the role pretty well, but it's not the same Kenobi. We can see he's been worn down, and he's sort of muted and dulled because of his experiences. And at first I didn't like that, but then I realized, no, wait, that's exactly what he should be.
It is.
That's exactly what he would be.
I think it was done well. I thought that part of the story was done well. You got to think, this is a guy who was one of the most influential figures in the entire galaxy at one point, and now he's in hiding. He works this crap job. He gets bullied, and he knows that he could do something about it, but if he does, then he might get caught and then killed by the Emperor or the Empire or whoever. So he's like,
and he's got a sacred mission to protect Luke and keep an eye on him from a cave. That looks drafty, man.
Looks like a terrible place to live. He's there for a long time, I guess. I feel like that was played well because look what's become of his life. It's sad. I mean, yes, he's got this mission, but the shit that he puts up with in order to carry out this mission.
Yeah, and then he later on sees Nari being strung up, having been killed by the Inquisitors. He's just like, ooh, reading things apart. He has a conversation with Owen, and apparently Owen just like tosses a toy at him, which was the T-16 Skyhopper. Yeah. Hello, that we saw in episode 4. That is so cool, that little model that he had. I always wondered why he had that model. I mean, I know the real behind-the-scene reason why he had the model, because I'm a nerd, but I always wondered, why did he have a much smaller scaled-down model of his own ship? That's like someone having a toy of their car, like the exact make and model of their car. That's a little bit weird, especially if it's like a I don't know, like a Ford Taurus or something.
Right. Because it's not a Mercedes of spaceships.
No, well, I mean, it's not even a spaceship. T-16 Skyhopper, I don't even think is space worthy.
Is it? Oh, okay. I was.
Well, maybe it is, or maybe it isn't. I don't know. It's like a bush,
maybe short range. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's like a bush pilot sort of thing. He's been described as having used it. I've actually got a model of it right here, but I'm not going to show you just because. Lame. Anyway, so Owen gives them about the toy and says, "Nope, you're not going to come anywhere near us." And it's just like, it's just a toy. And it's just like, yeah, but like, remember that guy I met once and never saw again, and then you turned up a few years later with his kid, saying how evil and fucked up he was, ruining my life forever? Yeah. Don't want to repeat of that. Thank you very much. I'm looking after this kid, and I don't want you messing up his life like you messed up his father's life. Seriously, that's a fucking weird thing. Like, hello, I am your secret sort of brother. Bye now. Okay, I'm back. I have his kid here. That's weird.
Yeah, it was weird. I always imagined that maybe Owen and Beru, much like Leia's parents, had wanted to adopt somebody, or maybe they were having trouble conceiving or whatever. And so
fucking coincidence if they did. Speaking of, we then cut from that to Alderaan, which we rarely get to see in live action, and we get to see Bail Organa and his wife, whose name I forget, and little kid Leia. This is fucking excellent.
Yeah, no, it was a good twist, because I assumed, and I think most people assumed, that really we weren't going to be seeing Leia too much, that it was going to be on Tatooine, it was going to have more to do with Luke than Leia, and then it changed right away.
And it wasn't. It was the exact opposite. And I mean, as much as I would have liked to stay on Tatooine and focus on, like, not his relationship with Luke necessarily, because we don't really know what kind of relation they have, but also just explore that sort of idea. But I like the fact they turned it on its head, and now we get to see more of Leia as a kid, because we know very little about that, at least with this new canon. And it's really cool, because she's so precocious and cute. It's like she calls out injustice. Yeah, she's a princess, but she's a moral one. She calls out injustice whenever she sees one. When she hears someone insulting a droid, she basically says to them,
"Choke on a slice of shut-up cake, you unfathomable swamp crab."
Slightly more polite than that.
She does it more of a, royal way.
Yeah, and and the actor did such a great job, a great job. It was so easy to make that character really annoying. She didn't do that though. She completely sidestepped that.
I think she did a great job for especially for a kid actor. She nailed the part, because that's who Princess Leia is, right? She is somebody who is always standing up for the right thing. She's very forthright. That's who the character is. And so, especially for somebody so young, yeah, I thought she did a great job too. The little droid, I was told that Carrie Fisher had a pet bird named Lola when she was a kid.
Oh.
And so that's where they get the name of the droid from, who is like a little bird who's always like floating around near her.
That's awesome. I did not know that. That's absolutely fine. I'm glad I know that now. And yeah, so she gets into scrapes, and she's a little bit of a tomboy. She's all running for her parents. I like her relationship with the parents. They seem really cool. It's so cool to see Jimmy Smits again in this sort of thing. I like how he's constantly just coming back. Well, not constantly, but he's come back for this with a Rogue One and this. That's really cool.
Another one that I feel can really do no wrong. I mean, this is a TV veteran. Jimmy Smits was great.
He was in the pilot episode of Miami Vice.
Was he? He was a regular in L.A. Law back in the day. I don't know if you ever watched the show Sons of Anarchy, but he becomes a pretty major character in that show as well. He's
Dexter.
Dexter, yeah, absolutely. He does no wrong in my opinion. He was a great Bail Organa all the way through the series, and like you said, he keeps coming back for. I'll keep taking more Jimmy Smits until they blow up Alderaan.
Well, again, with Rogue One, that's pretty much the last canonically we see of him. We might see him further in this backwards timeline sort of thing. Who knows? But he's not around when Leia gets kidnapped by Needles from Back to the Future.
A.K.A. Flea from Red Hot Chili Peppers.
It's so weird that guy's an actor. And he's not even a bad actor. He's quite good. He was in The Wild Thornberrys.
I think he was in Point Break.
I did not know that. I've never seen Point Break.
I could be wrong, but I know that at least one person from Red Hot Chili Peppers was in the original Point Break movie with Keanu Reeves and Patrick Swayze. He does, but he's kind of typecast. I imagine that Flea is really great at acting this one type. Like you mentioned Needles from Back to the Future. I really saw this character in Star Wars as the Star Wars version of Needles, a little bit older. Or a lot older.
And a little bit more criminally inclined. Not that he wasn't already.
Right, he was only a teenager back in Back to the Future, so I imagine he grew up and became a space pirate, is what happened.
I could see that happening. Which leads us to episode 2. Basically, Bail contacts Kenobi and well, she says this is in episode 1, but still, he contacts Kenobi and says, "Oi, my kid's missing. You said you'd watch out for the other kid. Well, now we've got one other kid over here that, is in trouble. Help, please help." And so, thankfully, he does. And he ends up going to the planet Dayu, where he encounters his own daughter selling him death sticks.
Right. Well, just let me back up 1 second. He turns Bail down. He says absolutely not. Bail has to travel all the way to Tatooine and show up in his little cave house and basically beg him face to face before Kenobi is convinced to do it. But yeah, I thought it was great that Ewan McGregor's own daughter is the one who's trying to sell him death sticks. She had a very small part, but I think she did it well. And I would not be opposed to seeing her in the Star Wars universe again. There's plenty of places she can show up. We got Ahsoka coming up not too long from now. Plenty of other shows. There's also the
I think that's gonna be set much further along though. That's set after the Galactic Civil War, which is it hasn't even happened yet. That's another 10 and change years away.
And there's also the Andor series that's coming up.
There's an Andor series.
Andor is the name of the guy from Rogue One.
Yeah. No, I remember now. I just blocked that from my mind because I found that character so utterly boring.
Yeah. Actually, I was surprised that he's getting his own series, but
I like the idea. I like the concept. I even like the actor who plays him. I just didn't think he did a great job, and I didn't really care about the character. I get it, he's still tortured because he wants to do the right thing, but he has to do bad things in order to help the rebellion and for the greater good. That's a really interesting character idea, but when there's so much going on in that movie, you don't really have time enough to explore it properly. But anyway, we're not here to talk about Andor. We're here to talk about Kenobi. And so he goes to that and he encounters Kumail Nanjiani. I don't know why. I do know why. It's because he was in fucking Eternals, and if you turn up in Marvel, you end up being in Star Wars. If you're in Star Wars, you end up being in Marvel.
His character was really funny. I thought actually the magnets trying to pose as a Jedi and all that stuff. I thought he was an interesting character. I haven't seen that in Star Wars before. I don't think a fake Jedi.
That's really dumb. But he's so cool. But that's so dumb.
Yeah, it's. I don't know how to feel about that. Again, this was like a character that we could have needed to be expanded upon more. We see him a lot in this episode, and he turns up sporadically throughout the next couple of episodes to the end. But again, it feels paper thin. Here's a cool concept. Shall we explore this? No. And
yeah,
I want to explore it.
Yeah, they do that a lot. They'll like throw some idea at you and then not explore it.
That's what I liked about The Mandalorian, was because I don't want to make too many comparisons between that because they're very different shows, both in style and execution. But when you saw something interesting in The Mandalorian, it got explored. If not in that episode, then certainly later on. And you really got a sense for who everyone is and what their motivations are and what drives them, their likes, their dislikes, their passions, their flaws, their weaknesses, everything like that. And we just don't really get that here. We get a few times it's a bit like that. There are 1 or 2 characters which are like, oh, that's really cool. But for the most part, we don't. And, God. But anyway, Kenobi manages to find... I'm not sure what to call him, Obi-Wan or Ben. It's difficult to say.
It's half a dozen, 1, 6 the other.
Yeah. And so we managed to find Leia, defeats the kidnappers, rescues her, and then it's become clear that Reva is just like full on disobeying orders because she puts a bounty out on Kenobi. And we wonder why she's got such a hard-on for this guy. Why does she really want to get him? And that becomes clear later. But it's interesting to see her just like so single-mindedly determined, and it makes you wonder why. She's one of those characters. Like again, I don't think the concept. I think the concept should have been explored more in another series, or she could have got more time with him. But what we got was interesting. I wanted to know more about this character, and so she basically starts hunting them down. It ends in a big chase scene. It's a really cool chase scene. She's doing like hardcore parkour all over the buildings.
Right. I wanted to mention that there's a lot of cool Force abilities shown in this show that I like that you don't see too much. Like this is what I would think a Jedi or a Sith could do. I mean, no, they can't fly, but man, she can make some amazing jumps over buildings and almost walk down the walls using the Force. And she was on a mission. And like you said, the real reason comes out later. All they're giving you initially is, oh, well, she wants to become Grand Inquisitor. She thinks if she can get Vader Kenobi, that she'll get a promotion. It's much more than...
It's a good red herring. It's a really clever red herring.
We find out it's much more than that, but she is so impressive on those rooftops in that chase scene.
Yeah, and here's the whole thing. Leia and Obi-Wan have not been getting along particularly well. She's a bit precocious. I get that, sure, but this is the one instance where I thought, like, Leia, he saved you from kidnappers. Maybe stop arguing with him and actually listen to him just a little bit. But it ends with her not entirely trusting him a little bit, and he uses the Force to save her, and it's a really cool scene. And then finally, they manage to escape the cargo port, but Reva corners him, and she's like, oh, didn't you know? Anakin Skywalker is alive. He's Darth Vader. And we see Hayden Christensen with his skin all peeled and flaky in a bacta tank.
Well, that was grim.
It sure was. I was surprised. Like, I get the point that Obi-Wan felt that he had killed Anakin at the end of episode 3, but 10 years later, he's got to know who Darth Vader. I would have thought that he would have known who Darth Vader was, but apparently not.
This is a tricky thing to balance because it's about managing the character's knowledge and the audience's knowledge, because we, the audience, know exactly who Darth Vader is. You could do this whole thing with Darth Vader confronting Kenobi and him not knowing who he was, but we, the audience, know. So there's a bit of dramatic irony. There's a thin line between dramatic irony and it's like okay, just reveal it already. Just reveal it already. So I don't begrudge them doing it this way. I kind of thought that Obi-Wan would have already known because, yeah, maybe he could have thought he killed Anakin, but at the same time, he left Anakin very much alive right by the pit of lava. It's not outside the bounds of his imagination to think that maybe, just maybe, he could have survived. And then suddenly this dark figure starts popping up in all the hollow news nets saying that he's like the right fist of Vader. Did he not question where that guy came from? Did not one part of him think, like, you could have had an earlier scene with him looking at one of those things, like saying, Dateline, however many years it is in this calendar, the Empire's forces are stretching all over. Darth Vader, the head of the Imperial Navy, or whatever his title is, Lord Vader is leading the fight. Go get him, boys! Or something like that. And he's just like, whoa, who's that mysterious figure? And then deep inside with his eyes, we see that he knows it's Anakin. Or something. I don't know. But this sort of feels like it comes a little bit out of nowhere, but it's made up for later, I feel.
I mean, it's made to add to the drama, and it's done really well. This moment where he realizes what's happening. Oh my God, he's still alive. He's running. He's the head of the Empire, pretty much. In episode 3, Palpatine calls him "Rise, Lord Vader" before he fights Obi-Wan. But I guess Anakin never announces to him.
Oh yeah.
He never says to him, "Oh, I am now. I'm not Anakin. I'm now Darth Vader." Yada yada. I guess he never says it to him specifically. So I guess we could go with the theory that it could have been some other Sith apprentice that Palpatine had picked up post.
That's a lot of loopholes to jump through that we didn't need to jump through, I guess is the ultimate point I'm making. And but then the Grand Inquisitor arrives and is just like, Reva, you've been a very naughty person. And she just like, yeah, but we got Kenobi, this is whole my thing, you're not going to take this moment away from me. He's all like,
counterpoint, I'm in command and I order you to stop complaining.
She doesn't. She stabs him. Bringing us back to that point that you made earlier, surely that would have killed him. I get it. Here's the thing with lightsaber, it cauterizes the wounds, so massive internal trauma, but if you miss the vital organs, you could potentially survive. But here's the thing, she's been trained in lightsaber combat, surely she wouldn't have missed the vital organs.
Right. That would be my thought. Like, the moment in which you see it seems like a death moment, right? You say, oh, lightsaber, impalement, end of Grand Inquisitor, which of course didn't make any sense because this is taking place before the events of Star Wars Rebels. So it's like, how could they kill him before this happened? So I guess they didn't kill him.
This is where dramatic irony comes back. Dramatic irony is a double-edged sword. Right. It can come back to bite you hard in the arse.
Right. But yeah, so I guess, theoretically, cauterized wounds. Sure, we'll go with that.
That's all we can do. Either that, or they got him to a bacta tank immediately. It's not like that was one on site or something. But this means that Kenobi and Leia can escape, and then we see Ewan McGregor, Hayden Christensen in the bacta tank. Like I said, now I'm seeing a lot of Hayden Christensen apologists out there, and I get why, because we past the point right now with a lot of fandom where it's really uncool to be an asshole, and I'm glad of that. Admittedly, as a bit of an asshole myself, I am glad that we've moved, for the most part, moving on from all the rampant bullying and assholey behaviour. Not that stop people from being racist as fuck towards Moses Ingram to the point where Ewan McGregor had to release a video saying, "Oi, stop it! Don't make me come over to your home."
I think he made a really good point in that video, is that the people that are going online and making racist remarks about Moses Ingram are not actually Star Wars fans. These are just hardcore racists that see an opportunity to promote their vile opinion or propaganda. I don't think there are any actual and I could be wrong. I'm not the authority. I don't know what everybody thinks, but I don't know anybody who is a hardcore Star Wars fan that's also a racist. I don't know of any.
But how many racists do you hang out with?
Not really any. But I know a lot of people that like Star Wars. I mean, everybody loves Lando Calrissian, and I realized that in the first 3 movies, he's the only person in the entire galaxy that has dark skin, and that's unfortunate. But being as progress is a thing, as the years go by and Star Wars continues to put out movies and TV shows, we see people, we're seeing a more Star Trek looking cast, which has always promoted people of every race, gender, creed, whatever, and I think that's great. And I honestly think Moses Ingram was possibly the best part of this show.
I'm not sure I go that far, but she's definitely a highlight in terms of her
Pretty
acting.
good.
I thought she was really good. And frankly, it started off good, but it just got progressively better as the show went on, in my opinion. That's largely maybe down to the character. Like, she had to purposely hide a lot of stuff from the audience to maintain the narrative. And so that changes your performance, inevitably. But it was still good. And it was interesting to see that.
It's a shame.
Here's the thing that I want to point out. The thing that I was trying to talk about was because Hayden Christensen faced a lot of flack for the original movies that he did, so the prequel trilogy, because a lot of people said that he was a crap actor in those. I maintain that he is a crap actor in those. A lot of people have made some interesting points to sort of counteract that, saying, "Oh, but he's got great facial expressions a lot of the time," and I can see that. That's only half the performance, though. The other half is him fucking talking, because this isn't a silent movie. If it was a silent movie, I'd give him an Oscar, but it's not. And he got to talk, and when he opens his mouth, it does not sound great. In fairness, it had poor direction, and it had poor scripts. Both of them have poor scripts. So there's only so much you can do. And I've seen him in other things, and I know he can be good in other things, but we don't have to pretend like his acting was good, because it wasn't, which is really weird considering the fact that his acting in this show is really good.
I would contend that in his original performances in the movies, that the character that he's playing is a whiny bitch, and perhaps that's why he came off like a whiny bitch. I'm not going to contend that Hayden Christensen is a phenomenal actor. He's not bad. He's a better actor than me, for sure. But I would just keep in mind that while you may hate his character, it's because he is playing a whiny little bitch. We all thought that Luke was whiny in the original trilogy, but
a little bit, and even then sporadically. But I don't want to get into the whole thing, so I just want to say that
also
you can. All I want to say is this: on Hayden Christensen, you can criticize his acting. That does not mean it's okay to bully him or indeed anyone else. But I will say this: I did think his acting was much better in this thing. We don't get to see him like all the time, but when we do see him, it's really good.
Right.
And I don't know if that's him building and stuff. And he seems like really enthused to be back in Star Wars. And I think that's because a lot of people have met him with similar enthusiasm, like say, "Hey, good for you." Matt Lanter's still my personal Anakin, but he's I don't want to say he made up for it, because that's a bullshit, pretentious thing to say. But it's good to see him back. It's good to see him better, in just my opinion. And that he is having a good time, because it would break my heart to think that he was coming back and not having a good time, having to go through all that again, because no one should have gone through that in the first place. Him, Ahmed Best, Jake Lloyd, Daisy Ridley.
Jake Lloyd was really bad.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. Again, yes, he was. Sometimes, other times he wasn't. But it doesn't matter, because he was a kid.
He was a kid.
He was a kid.
He was very young.
At least when Hayden Christensen was doing it, he was a fucking adult. I blame any blame when it comes on to Jake Lloyd's performance, not on Jake Lloyd's performance, but on whoever cast him and said director/writer who we mentioned earlier. But again, I don't want to go into all of that, because I'm not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about episode 3. That's everything. There are nowhere near as many episodes as I thought there were going to be. There are only 6 episodes.
Yeah, it's to me, that's fine, though. It's a mini series. People are already talking about doing a season 2, and I'm just like, as much as I enjoyed this series, I don't want to see a season 2. There's a timeline that has to be followed here, and we skipped 10 years. There's only 8 more years left. Are we going to have yet another Obi-Wan and Vader fight in which Obi-Wan wins and then leaves him alive?
We'll come back to that later. Right now, again, let's talk about episode 3. So, now on Mustafar, because Vader is nothing but a masochist. "Hey, do you know where I want to live? That place where I was horrifically burned."
That was a little bizarre. I started getting the impression that maybe Vader at this point has some throne rooms on several different planets. I thought that was bizarre that he just wanted to hang out at Mustafar, but
I think it's just because don't forget, Vader, as cool and as oppressive as he is basically fueled by rage, and being around the place that completely and utterly broke his body with his fueled as rage, because that's basically what's keeping him alive. That's been established, that him immersing himself in the dark side and just fueling his rage is all that's keeping him alive, because even the machines aren't keeping him alive, they're helping him, but ultimately that's why when he, despite only just losing a hand, when he turned to the light side and finally let go of his anger and reformed for like 5 minutes, he died. Yeah. That's why I could finally let go of my anger and can feel something else. What's that? Oh, yes, it's death. Bye. Right. I think that's my theory. At all. But Father, don't worry, well, go back to the dark side. Go back to the dark side. Be my dad, but go back to the dark side. Oh, okay. I'm so angry, but I'm alive. Yay!
Maybe he's angry about being alive.
That is partially it. Don't forget, he's a twisted warp because he lost everything, and now all he has is just maintaining some sort of empire and stability, because he's just so single-minded in that regard, unless Kenobi turns up, because he talks to Revan and says, find him, and if you find him, there might be a promotion in your future. Right. Meanwhile, Kenobi and Leia land on this mining planet, and they go to this rendezvous point given to them by Kumail Nanjiani. I'm not going to bother to remember his name in the show. But here's the thing. It's a great shot where we see Kenobi looking over and he sees a vision of Anakin in his cloak and his robe and stuff in the distance. And then when he looks back, he's gone. Little touches like that are really cool. I get that you want to get as most out of Hayden Christensen as possible, but that's not a bad way to do it.
I agree. I thought the little hallucination he had of Anakin was on point.
Yeah, it's really cool. And they build up to seeing more of him as we go on. They don't give us like a great big Hayden Christensen dump right in this episode. They tease us with it. It's good. And there they end up taking a ride on a transport driven by this mole guy, voiced... Yes. Now, I thought at first it was Seth Rogen, but then I realized his voice was just altered slightly. I had no idea that Zach Braff and Seth Rogen sounded similar, but I guess apparently up with a little bit of audio mixing, they do.
Yeah, I thought the same exact thing, and I'm a huge Zach Braff fan. I've seen every episode of Scrubs at least 3 times.
Same.
I'm from New Jersey. He did Garden State, great movie with Natalie Portman. Yeah, he was very funny, and I like the fact that he was a snitch too. You know, like he's like this kind of quirky guy, but he ends up being like this sketchy little like a scab for the Empire. He's like, oh hey, check these two out. Like, you know, it's an interesting character. Not that I appreciate that he ratted Obi-Wan and Leia out, but the character was cool. It's like we were talking about.
And I, for one, welcome our new insect overlords.
Exactly. Great.
I mean, he's a mole. He probably eats insects.
Great Simpsons reference.
I got a million of them, trust me. And yeah, it's interesting to see that and them trying to maintain the ruse, and even Kenobi messes up at some point. But they're found by a bunch of Imperial troops, and then this Imperial officer, Tala, came to visit them, and she's played by... I always forget her name, but then I remember...
I forget her name too, but she's really good.
Okay, Indira Verma. I always remember her last name, but I can never remember her first name, Indira. She has been a mainstay in British television for many, many years, also in Game of Thrones and things like that. And she's not known for playing villain roles, but she can play villain roles. And so when you see her as a British actor in the role of Imperial officer, you immediately think, oh, she's going to be a bad guy.
Yep.
Nope, she's a good guy.
Yeah, it's a good switch there, because you know somebody's got to come and save them, and they're like, "Oh crap, he's done for now," and she ends up being a mole, an Imperial mole.
Well, no, Zach Braff was the Imperial mole.
Well, she's a
double agent,
I guess.
She's a double agent. Yeah. And basically, she's part of this thing called the Path, an underground network that hides people being hunted by the Empire, including ex-Jedi. And we get a few little Easter eggs related to Sun Jedi, graffiti scribbled on the walls, including Quinlan Voss. When are we going to get a Quinlan Voss series?
I don't know. Will she show up in Ahsoka?
Quinlan Voss is a guy.
Who is Quinlan Voss?
Oh, this guy, dark skin, yellow face paint on him, dreads. He's got psychometry powers.
Oh,
pretty cool.
Okay, I remember him.
He turned up in Clone Wars that one episode.
Right. Clone Wars.
He's pretty ubiquitous in like novels and graphic novels and things like that.
I think he would have been killed. He didn't get killed in Order 66. He survived.
No, it's in both the original canon and I think the new canon as well. He was one of the few that managed to survive.
Okay.
And actually outlive, possibly even outlive the not the Empire necessarily, but he got far enough to where like Luke starts becoming a Jedi. I don't know if they ever cross paths.
Okay, I haven't read any of that. I do remember him from that episode of Clone Wars that he was in.
Yeah, it's
vaguely.
He's a pretty cool character, and I'd like to see maybe more of him again showing up. But it's a coolest Easter egg. We need to keep the focus where it is. That's absolutely fine. And there's also this big droid there, this is not his name, but I just called him Loaderbot. It's a reference to Borderlands.
I was told that, and I don't know if this is right, there's something about Kevin Smith in that Loaderbot. Like, maybe Kevin Smith was doing the green light acting for it. I saw something on the internet, and I didn't read anything specific, but I had like a picture of Kevin Smith under the picture of that Loaderbot. And since he doesn't say anything, I think they're modeling that Loaderbot out of Silent Bob.
Oh, okay. That's... I wondered why that droid smoked that doobie later on.
Exactly. Now, there's some connection between that Loaderbot and Kevin Smith. I don't know exactly what it is.
Here's an idea. When's Kevin Smith going to do something Star Wars related?
I can't wait. I'm a huge fan.
I mean, I think he's great. But yeah, that droid's pretty cool. They're showing a bunch of underground tunnels that they're going to use. But then, who should arrive? But it's Darth Vader himself.
Oh, the complete and indescribable anguish!
He just starts mowing through this town, just like killing people left and right. Not even looking at him, just like, you're dead, you're dead, bzz, you're dead, you're dead. Kenobi, are you come out and play? Right. It's really, really hardcore, but eventually Kenobi's just like, I gotta face him. He darts out to kind of get him, and Leia and Tala, the Imperial officer, have to go on ahead to provide distraction. Tala tries to come back to save him, resulting in Leia being captured by Reva. But before that happens, Kenobi and Vader have their square off, and I saw a lot of people complaining online that Kenobi just sort of ran off when he first confronted by Vader, to which I said, no, that's exactly what he would do, because A, he's trying to distract him, and B, I think it's far more pertinent, Obi-Wan Kenobi has PTSD up his balls. He is actually afraid of him, and I don't blame him. He's a scary person, and he's his literal past come back to haunt him.
Yeah.
So...
And Vader's been using the Force all this time. He hasn't grown weak, whereas Obi-Wan has literally been like forcing himself not to use the Force, and it's like a muscle like anything else. You don't use something for 10 years, you're going to be really rusty at it. He was in no shape to face Vader at that time.
And that's proven by Vader, like, dumping a bunch of fuel on the floor, setting on fire, and trying to burn Kenobi. Yeah. And at this point, I want to point out that James Earl Jones also returns as Darth Vader. Some people have criticized James Earl Jones in recent years for the few times where he's brought the voice back, like in Rogue One. He didn't sound great. I noticed that in Rogue One. I did not notice it here. I don't know if he just needed to get back into the role or something, but it felt like we were back in 1977.
Yeah, he was absolutely amazing. The voice acting that he provided was phenomenal. This episode that we're talking about right now is really, I think they're showing how scary, how terrifying, how ruthlessly violent Vader is for one of the really rare occasion. like you said, he's just killing people left and right. Then he's forced.
He's tying them down with his lightsaber. He's force choking them.
Don't kink shame me!
Yeah, he's force dragging Kenobi over hot coals, like burning his face. Like, how do you like it? How do you like being burned alive? This is truly dark. The very evil Darth Vader that is in our nightmares. That should be in our nightmares.
I think that's just because James Earl Jones just likes playing him so much. I remember watching an interview with him. It was a brief snippet that I saw, and it was right after the first Star Wars film came out, and his son had come up to him and he said, "Papa, how could you? How could you be the bad guy?" And that's a really powerful thing. But apparently, James Earl Jones just really likes playing Darth Vader because he lets his theatrical side out. He's done movies and one or two TV shows, but he's also done a lot of stage work. Like he was one of the first people that did that film, the play
Fences. Fences, one of my favorite plays of all times by August Wilson. Amazing play. He played Troy, the lead character in Fences when it first opened up. And he was amazing.
Yeah, well, because he is amazing. He's got this big theatrical Shakespearean quality to him, and he brought that out with Vader that I guess he just didn't really have the chance to do in Rogue One because he was in it for so little. He gets way more lines here, and it works really, really well, and it's really exciting. He does get driven off a little bit by Tala slightly, but then that leads us straight into Episode 4. It also leads us straight into another ad. Check them out. So, Vader Kenobi escape. Kenobi and Tala escape Vader, and they go to this other place on this other planet called Ajabim, I think it is. Meanwhile, Leia is now being held hostage by Reva in this big water planet place that looks very similar to that station thing that we had on that water planet from the end of Jedi Fallen Order.
Jedi Fallen Order, is that a video game?
Yes,
I have not played it.
It was one of the. Oh my god, you're gonna! It's one of the best Star Wars video games to come out in years. It's sort of like a Dark Souls Metroidvania video game, but with the ginger guy from Shameless.
Oh, really? The younger brother?
Yeah,
one of the younger brothers.
I don't know. He was also in Gotham and things like that.
Yeah,
Cameron Monaghan.
I don't know his name, but I know the face. I know who you're talking about. I wasn't sure if this was Camino. I thought it might have been Camino at first.
No, even according to other sources, there's a place called Nur, which is such a boring name. I never forgot to remember it. I've just got it written down here. So they try to infiltrate the fortress, and they do, frankly, a piss poor job of it. I mean, there's lots of tension and stuff, and Tyler does a pretty good job of it. But Kenobi, he just like, okay, so I'm going to knock out this stormtrooper. Shall I take his uniform? No, that might be helpful.
Right. I don't understand why only in the original movie and then in Rebels do they ever think to pick up the stormtrooper outfits that would help them immensely.
I guess the armor just wasn't in his size. Not that it stopped him from taking that trooper that he knocked out and then leaving him face down in that pool of water.
That sounds a little like murder.
I mean, it kind of is.
Dear God.
There's more.
No.
They go, I've got a million of them. They go through the fortress and eventually Kenobi finds... I shouldn't have used that sound effect there because I need it for this bit. A vault full of preserved dead Jedi.
Right. That was creepy.
It was really creepy. I kind of wish we'd seen a few more recognizable Jedi that we know had died in Order 66 or something. Right. But no, nothing. Well, it's still creepy as fuck. It's really, really impactful, and it's a cool thing to see. But then we sort of move away from it, and it never gets visited again. Like, it was a really impactful scene, but when it goes, it's just... It doesn't add to anything.
Right, they don't explore it. They don't go in. They don't get into it, which was what we were talking about earlier. Too bad, but maybe, maybe there will be a second season of Kenobi, and they will get into that at some point.
Hey, remember that one scene from last season? Let's bother to explore it now. A few years later, maybe I
don't know.
I don't know. But this is the time for you to develop things now. Okay, let's finish this meal before we start the next course. Okay. But anyway,
Yes, brother.
they return to the fortress. Tala's cover is blown. They do manage to rescue Leia, and they get help from a bunch of snow speeders, which is really cool, including Wade, everyone's favorite character. Hey, you remember Wade? Remember what a really interesting and developed and just thought-provoking character he was? Remember how many times they used his name before he died in the snow speeder? Not because they wanted to remind us what his name was, but because he was that impactful.
Apparently, but not so much.
Yeah, I don't give a fuck about Wade.
Yeah, me neither.
Like you could have just not named him, and but they try and make a big deal out of it. We don't need to make a big deal out of it. We don't need to get emotional. If you want us to be emotionally attached to this character, let us be emotionally attached. We need to know him for longer than a few minutes, if even that. And otherwise, here's what you do. Here's what you do. Just don't mention his name. And I was like, oh, Rebel died. Oh no, but it adds dramatic tension. But they make a big deal like, oh, no, Wade, not Wade. He was our favorite. Oh, shit. Oh, God, Wade. And part of me wondered if it was a reference to Dak from Empire. But even then, that wasn't focused on too much. It was just like the guy who was with Luke who sadly died. And then they don't make a big deal out of it.
He leaves Dak's dead body right before it gets smushed by an at.
He had no other choice, but at the same time, it's...
like, who cares? And I don't know who Wade is.
Yeah.
The only Wade I know is Deadpool.
Exactly. That's about what I say. Oh, he's pretty much ruined that name, hasn't he? But they do manage to escape, and Vader is pissed. And he goes up and basically says, give me a reason why I shouldn't kill you right now. And she says, I can give you 2 reasons. Beacon and tracking. Yeah. Reverse them. What do you get? And he's like, that's really interesting. Okay, you're off the hook. In fact, I may use that whole tracking beacon thing again in the future. That sounds like it might be quite clever. Mm-hmm. And then they basically track them to back to Jabim because he's put a tracking thing in Leia's droid Lola. Yeah. That brings us to episode 5, and we get a flashback sequence of young Kenobi and younger Anakin doing a little bit of a sparring thing.
I have to address this. I was confused, and it's because of the mere fact that Hayden Christensen has aged. So I wasn't sure originally if this was a flashback or he was just imagining something. But I realized that they just decided to give him the Padawan haircut and say, let's go for it. And it was a flashback. But I didn't realize that initially. I thought he might have just been imagining the whole thing in his delirious state.
I mean, either one would have been fair enough. But no, it is a flashback. And the internet, as in unison, went... I clicked on it wrong and it went all weird. Sorry about that. But I just heard Lord Flashheart going hooray ad infinitum. But everyone really likes this. And yeah, it's really cool. Though it does beg the question, Obi-Wan, how the fuck did you not realize this kid was going to go off the deep end? He's been so aggressive.
Right. He's so aggressive.
It's meant to be a funny sparring thing. And it's just like, it should not have taken you by surprise. This kid went to the dark side, but it's still a really cool scene. And again, it shows Hayden Christensen is just really good at sword fighting. Like for the tie-in game for Revenge of the Sith, he instructed a lot of the animators as to how to animate the character. It was really helpful in that regard. He's quite good at that shit.
I didn't know that, but that's great. Adds to the authenticity of it. But yeah, it is a great scene, and it's pertinent in the story, in the entire story of the series, their relationship and how their relationship oftentimes boils down to who is the better sword fighter.
That's a good point. Who is the better sword fighter?
Who is? Well, I think that the track record says that Obi-Wan is better. That at least he's more patient and he's smarter. Like by pure skill, maybe Anakin is actually better, but he beats himself. He beats him.
That's good. I think if Anakin had never gotten into that lava or whatever happened, I think if he had been given enough time with On the Light to the Dark Side, he would have become a better sword fighter than Obi-Wan. He would have surpassed him. But at that point, he had not surpassed him, and he basically defeated himself, as you said.
Yeah, he beats himself. He gets too angry. He gets too personal. He stops.
You underestimate my power.
Exactly. He becomes overconfident, and it's his downfall. If he
I could jump right onto this ledge now and just walk up to you, but now I'm going to do some sick Cirque du Soleil shit.
Yeah.
But anyway, then that thing happens, and basically they are tracked to Jabim. Reva gets promoted to Grand Inquisitor, and the Empire besieges the little hideout that they have, which is a big problem for Tala and the other guy there, played by... What the fuck is his name?
I can't remember the actor's name or the character's name, but I know you're talking.
O'Shea Jackson Jr. Okay. So here's the thing. O'Shea Jackson Jr. Good actor. I have not seen the whole movie, but seen clips from Straight Outta Compton, where he played his dad. Which is really,
he's
really
Ice Cube's son?
Yes.
He looks like Ice Cube. He does.
But that's why he got cast as his dad, and he did a really good job on that. But in this show, something is really off with his performance. I don't know if it was because he was uncomfortable with the material, or he was just a little bit inexperienced or something. I don't know. But half of his dialogue sounds perfectly natural, and the other half sounds like he has no idea what the fuck he's saying. And it's completely random what half is going to be which. It's really off-putting. Distracting even.
I just felt it's possible that his character wasn't a very extensive character. And maybe that he just had a hard time putting together who this character was because it was so limited. Maybe there were parts of it where he sounded natural because he's like, okay, I get this. Possibly he didn't. I'm not really sure, but it's frustrating sometimes for even as the audience to see a character. Oh, he seems important, but we don't ever really get to know him. Why is he important?
Yeah, and he can be played by anyone. He's a background character that we don't really care about. We do care about Tala because we've had lots more time with her, and Indira Varma has plenty of time to flesh out the character and put herself behind it. He doesn't have the same option. So again, maybe it's not his fault, but it is still not a fantastic performance. But anyway, the Empire now basically going whole, Les Miserables on the barricades to this place. And Kenobi spends his time trying to stall and negotiate with Reva, and deduces that the reason why she knows who Vader truly is, and this was my big question when this was first revealed, like, how could she possibly know who she is? It was revealed now at this point that she was one of the younglings at the Jedi Temple.
And she saw Anakin come in. She knew who Anakin was, and she saw him murder her friends.
Okay, I can buy this, but there's a few problems. Number one, I think most of us assumed that she was a youngling due to the fact that that's what most of the Inquisitors once were. Like, they didn't come out of nowhere, and they never said otherwise, so that was what I assumed, at least. I don't begrudge anyone for not assuming that. Also, okay, so she saw Anakin, but now he's Vader, sounds different, moves a bit different, talks different. Maybe she could sense that it used to be him, but then why didn't none of the other Inquisitors do that? Is it a case that they didn't know who he was? Were they never younglings? Again, there was a way that they could make this work. They just need to go one tiny little extra bit further in order to really seal that up. And I don't think they did. But it's still a really interesting development. And it's still really cool that she basically it's revealed that the whole reason why she's doing this is because she wants Vader distracted by Kenobi, because she wants to sneak up to him and do him in when she gets the chance, because she's angry at him and wants to get vengeance to him for destroying all that she ever knew and loved. We see Hayden Christensen, walking in there in Order 66 and looking all evil and fucked up, and that's really cool.
I just think it would have made more sense if they would have tried to fight him together.
Yeah. It's again, that could have been another way this series could go. Kenobi having forced to part up with an Inquisitor, or at least a former Inquisitor, trying to take down Vader or something. And she's like, no, we're going to do this. We're going to take down Vader. And I've got something to hold over you, so that's why you're going to do it. And he's like, but I need to get back to Tatooine for Luke. Oh, shit. There's something there. And again, that's not what we got. What we do get is a pretty good scene with them trying to breach the base. That's pretty tense, and it gets really dramatic when Loaderbot dies, protecting Tala. No, Loaderbot! I'm getting flashbacks to Tales from the Borderlands. You made Laura Bailey cry.
Yeah, poor Loaderbot. Very sad. It's so funny how you have this character who literally says nothing, doesn't do much. He does a couple cool things, protects Leia a little bit, and pulls Obi-Wan out of the fire at one point, but somehow we're all connected to this droid. We all love the Loaderbot.
It's kind of like a dog situation, right. It's not human, but it has just enough characteristics in it to make it seem. Was there ever a point where it gave Leia the thumbs up or something? Or am I imagining that from Terminator? All I know is that when he died, I was all like,
I don't want to live on this planet anymore.
It was quite sad. And it gets even worse when Tala kills herself with a thermal detonator to buy them even more time. And it's sad because she was a really good character.
Yeah, I liked her.
In terms of the good characters, I'd say number 1, Kenobi. Number 2 for me was Tala, but she could share number 2 spot with Reva. They were both equally good in my opinion.
Also sad that Tala died, but if you're going to go out with a bang, and there's no bigger bang than a thermal detonator. That was awesome. That was a great way to go out. Anybody who's going to have to die should go out by via thermal detonator.
Yeah, it's so cool to see that. It's a really badass scene, and Kenobi surrenders afterwards, taken to Reva, and managed to convince her to kill Vader. They briefly managed to get away, and Obi-Wan managed to sneak out during the confusion, and Vader is not happy about that. He strolls in, he tries to go full Star Killer on the transport ship, just holding in place, but eventually was able to bring it down to the ground. Thankfully, however, there was another second transport ship right behind it, even though we didn't see that when it was taken off from the ground, that then flew up and he was able to get. And I kind of thinking that can't help but feel that this is familiar somehow. Got 2 ships that distract, that never got set up properly. Oh my god, they stole this from Rise of Skywalker!
Yeah, very surprising that Star Wars took from Star Wars. Nonetheless, it was a cool scene. It shows you just how powerful Vader is. He not only pulls the ship down, but then he just tears that ship apart like it's made out of paper. I imagine that spaceships are made of very sturdy stuff to traverse, the vacuum of space. And he rips that ship apart like it's nothing.
Yeah, and only to find there is nothing inside. At this point, Reva is creeping up behind him and tries to kill him in the most telegraphed and easily noticeable attack ever, admittedly from behind. I feel bad for saying that because...
Homer, it's very easy to criticize.
Fun, too.
But it's here's an idea. Don't breathe. Don't make a vocal noise and just try and be a bit sneakier. But it does lead to a really cool scene between Reva and Vader, her trying to kill him, and him basically toying with her like a cat toys with a mouse.
That's exactly what it was. He didn't even bust out the lightsaber at first. He was just force blocking all of her shots. Like, I mean, I guess she had no choice but to go all in at that point. But it was also obvious he was just toying with her. She had no chance of beating him one-on-one.
Yeah, and then he takes a lightsaber from her, but gives it back because just like, you know what? I've got some issues to work out. You're now my punching bag. And that's basically what he does. And he does manage to stab her while she's, again, lying on the floor, not dying. Someone who went through that previously walks up behind him. Oh, it's the Grand Inquisitor. No worse for wear. It turns out this whole thing has been...
Vader saw it coming the whole time.
Yeah, basically. She thought she was using him, but he was actually using her, which is cool and interesting. But then Reva finds a message from Bail Organa left behind by Kenobi, revealing about Luke and how he's Darth Vader's son. Bum, bum, bum.
Right. Now, I saw this and I'm thinking, okay, what is our point here, though? Like, she shot her shot. She lost. She got impaled by a lightsaber and left for dead. Why is she now going after Luke? And
vengeance by proxy. She's not even thinking straight. But you think on the journey over to Tatooine, she would take a time to think and say, okay, what's actually my goal here? What's my end goal? Again, she's just lashing out in anger. She wants to hurt him, but Vader doesn't even know about the kid. I honestly thought that she might be going there to kidnap the kid and hold him over Vader's head like she did with Leia or something. But no, apparently she's just going there to
kill Luke and then go contact Vader and be like, you didn't know it, but you had a son and I killed him. Was that her plan?
I mean, at that point you could have said, well, that could be anyone's kid. How do I know that's mine? Like, you just killed some random kid. Get your head on straight, Vader.
Right. Vader be like, hey, let me know when you kill a whole temple full of them.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the Empire is pursuing the transport ship full of all the people from the path, and Kenobi's just like, I need to split up to give you guys time. And they're like, oh, that couldn't possibly work. Why not? I don't. That's
obvious.
It should be fine. It should be fine. It gets kind of dragged out a little bit, and admittedly, the scene between him and Leia is really cute because he's got to leave her, and she doesn't like that. But he does go to a remote planet, which some people seem to think is Tatooine, and some people...
No, it's not Tatooine, because he has to get up on the ship and leave later, and then go to Tatooine once he's done fighting Vader.
Yeah, that's true. So, yeah, it couldn't have been Tatooine. But they have a big fight. It is fucking
phenomenal.
Awesome.
It's an amazing fight scene. One of the best, I think, Force duels ever, because it's not just a lightsaber duel. I mean, they are really using their powers. I mean, this is a fight scene that could have been put in the end of episode 3. It was so good. It was I don't know what planet it was on, but they're using all this rock and just throwing tons of rock at each other with force powers, which is I like seeing.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for them.
I love dodgeball.
They do everything. Here's the thing: it starts with like Kenobi seeming to be on the back foot, and then Vader burying him rocks and just thinking, "Well, that's the end of him." But then Kenobi comes back, uses his force powers, and he's sort of like back to full strength and everything. He seems like he had a broken connection with the Force, and now he's bringing it back. Cuts off part of Vader's helmet. Holy shit! And then we get interspersed between. We alternate between James Earl Jones' voice and Hayden Christensen's voice. I
think at the very end there, they've kind of got them both saying it, and it's like dubbed over each other. Like first you hear Hayden, then you hear James Earl Jones, and I think like the very last, it's like both of them like simultaneously. I'm not quite sure how they pulled it off, but it's so good. This scene at the end, he's like, "You didn't kill Anakin Skywalker. I did." I mean, this also wraps up the whole thing where later on in episode 4, Obi-Wan says, Vader killed your father. Well, that's literally exactly what Vader tells him. You didn't kill Anakin, I did. And it's great.
And I think it's plugging a gap in the lore, but it works. And it works really well because we built up to it. It becomes what it's been established. It makes sense for these characters based on what we've seen just in this television show alone. So it's really cool. And again, Hayden Christensen does some great facial acting behind the remains of the helmet. And Ben just leaves him there. Kenobi just leaves him there and goes off and just.
But this is the biggest problem with the show. And again, I love the show. I'm always going to nitpick stuff. He literally says he's like trying to commune with Qui-Gon, I think, at some point, and he says, "Either way, this is going to end today." And what instead happens is exactly what happened at the end of Episode 3. Obi-Wan beats him, and then instead of killing him. And it's even worse this time because now Obi-Wan knows that Darth Vader is the lead general. He's the 5-star general of the Empire. He is going to continue to hurt people, to kill people, to conquer worlds. And instead of killing him, which he totally could have done, he just leaves him there to live.
Well, you know why he did that?
Because he's Obi-Wan Kenobi.
I've no more fucks to give, the more fucks I've tried to get. I'm over my fuck budget, and I'm now in fucking debt.
And that's the only explanation I can come up with. That is a problem. I will admit, you made a good point. I didn't even consider that one. But they do leave it there. And Kenobi manages to go back to Tatooine because Reva is on a rampage. This is the great end scene with Owen, Beru, and fighting her, Luke running away and stuff like that. That's all great.
I like this scene a lot because Reva is clearly a dominant force here, but she's still wounded from Vader stabbing her through the gut with a lightsaber, which is the only reason why Owen and Beru survived this attack. And Owen goes to town on her. Like, you don't think of Owen as being a fighter. He's a farmer. But, I mean, he puts up one heck of a fight against Reva.
Well, he has to deal with, like, monsters of the sands and desert raiders and things like that. He comes prepared.
The power of love is bullshit. Power of swords and violence. That's where the money is.
And Beru's no joke either. She's like, look, I got shotguns, I got machine guns, let's do it.
I got grenades, motherfucker.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a really cool scene. Reva eventually finds Luke in that ravine. And he's knocked out, so she's like got him at her mercy, but she doesn't do it because obviously she doesn't. She hands him back, and neither Owen nor Beru do any sort of like questions or just like fuck you or nothing else like that. They just take Luke back.
Okay.
And then she's left with Obi-Wan, and she joins the light side.
We don't know what happens to Reva, and quite frankly, I'm really curious, and I'm really hoping that we find out what happens to her post Kenobi. She's a fairly young person. She could potentially live for a long time. She could still be alive in the Mando era, potentially.
Maybe. That would be interesting to see. Meanwhile, on Mustafar, Vader is getting a little bit of a Skype call from Ian McDiarmid. Awesome to see him again. Again, he's always up for this kind of thing. And he gets a little bit of a dressing down, and it shows probably the first canonical glimmer of doubt that A, Vader has in his master, and B, that the master has in Vader, just saying, hey, you seem a little bit slow on the draw. I hope I don't need a new apprentice anytime soon. And then he's just left Vader alone on Mustafar, brooding and everything like that, having to deal with the bureaucracy of the Empire.
It's not because of Brexit, it's not because of Brexit, this is not our fault.
I have very little context for that clip, I just like using it.
Fair enough. You actually brought something to mind for me, the fact that now the Emperor Palpatine for the first time is kind of thinking, oh, I don't know about this Vader guy. Maybe I chose the wrong horse. You know what? One character I would love to see brought into canon that I have not seen yet would be Mara Jade, the Hand of the Emperor.
Yes.
I
mean, she'd be like 10 years old at this point.
But that's a great time to start grooming him.
Let's not use the word grooming and 10-year-old girl in the same sentence.
Not 10-year-old girl, just 10-year-old Force-sensitive human.
That's slightly better,
but that's what they did.
I take it.
I mean, that.
I take what you mean. I take your meaning. We're going to move on.
It's a fictional world we're talking about.
I know. Moving on, though, we are going to Alderaan. Leia is reunited with her family. She's going to be more princessy in the future, and Obi-Wan goes to visit them.
Makes no sense. He travels all the way from Tatooine, which is a heck of a journey, to Alderaan for 5 minutes, and it gets right back up on the ship and leaves.
That's a outer rim planet to a core world planet. I mean, they're fairly close together.
No, Tatooine is the outer rim.
I mean, it's close enough for a trip from the Millennium Falcon. Let me put it this way. But it's still.
Minutes. He's there for 5 minutes. He leaves.
It's completely stupid. Send a message. Give her an email, a text, anything. Right. It's fucking Snapchat, anything. It's. And it is a very sweet scene, but it's not really justified. And then later on, he goes back to Tatooine, meets up with Owen, and is just like, you know what, you were right. Luke needs a regular childhood. I'm not going to talk to you about training or anything. I'm just going to keep an eye on things, but we'll let him come to his destiny in his own way. And then Owen's just like, do you want to meet him? And it's like, okay, yeah. And of course, how else could we possibly end this show but with
hello there?
Of course. Hello there, his most famous line.
Fucking meme.
It's become his line. I heard that Ewan McGregor doesn't really like saying it anymore because it's become so overplayed. Regardless.
Yeah, I don't blame him. But
regardless, I thought it was a nice little touching scene at the end. He gives him the little toy or whatever it is. And this is how Luke, later on in episode 4, oh, you didn't think he'd talk about old Ben Kenobi, that guy I saw once?
Basically, yes. So, that's all the episodes. We're going to talk about our final thoughts in just a second. But before we do, here's another round of ads. Fooled you! There's one last thing we need to talk about. They have their own post-credit scene. We can have ours. Fucking Liam Neeson shows up.
Yeah, I thought he would have been actually in it earlier in the series, but I guess there was need for it. Love Liam Neeson as Qui-Gon Jinn. Qui-Gon Jinn was such a great character. So sad that he really never got fully developed. But yeah, I don't really know what the point of that was, though. Is he leading him to another cave on Tatooine where he's going to set up another little cave apartment?
I don't know. It's all about him like reconnecting with the Force, which has been an overarching theme throughout the series. So I don't begrudge them that. I'm just willing to say that this is interesting and cool, but basically fan service.
Sure.
Which isn't necessarily bad, but that's what it is. So we talk about the ups and the downs. There are plenty of good things in the show and plenty of less than good things. A lot of the acting is great. The characterization is poor. Here's the thing. The main thing that people have criticized is the writing. I am inclined to agree. The writing in this series is poor. Now, good direction and good acting can overcome that. Thank God for Deathwood Chow. If this was in the hands of a lesser director, it would be fucked.
Sure.
There'd be nothing redeemable here. But there is, and she is, and it works. Here's what I wanted from this show. I wanted an introspective, soul-searching, spirit quest journey vibe thing with Obi-Wan bumming around Tatooine, maybe getting into a few scrapes here and there, trying to be dragged back into adventures, but he was refusing, all while searching for peace and meaning in the face of his trauma and his guilt over the mistakes of his past. We get snippets of that focused around a show that is, for want of a better word, and maybe this is a bit unfair, but it is a tad generic.
Sure. I would have also preferred what you were describing, the introspective. I don't necessarily need more shots of Tatooine because, let's face it, everything important in this entire galaxy happens on this backwater desert planet. I'm fine with other planets,
true.
But I was thinking more of an introspective, maybe the show. We mentioned Qui-Gon Jinn at the very end. Maybe this was about him learning how to channel the Force and commune with previous Jedis, which would be great considering how Rise of Skywalker ended with one Jedi basically becoming all the Jedi. Maybe we could have seen a little bit about that.
What is she, the Avatar or
Right,
something?
I don't really get it.
But we could have added additional context to that. We could have
Made
seen
no
like
sense.
visions of the future or something. It could have been really cool and maybe a little bit trippy and a little bit also like Lawrence of Arabia-esque or something. I don't know. But again, that's not what we got. What we got was a really mixed bag with a lot of high points, but also a lot of low points. Most notably, episode 4, which is, compared to all the other ones, is really lowly rated. It is... like, all the other ones are like, here for the most part. And episode 4 is just like, no.
Oh, I didn't know that. Well, like you said, the writing, there are just so many scenes where it's like, this doesn't really make sense. It doesn't make sense contextually. We could have done other things with it.
I don't give a crap about... I mean, okay, I say that. I do give a little bit of crap about the lore. I want the lore to be fairly consistent, but here's the problem. It's Star Wars lore, which is fucked right from the outset. Right. It's Star Wars canon has never not been a confusing, jumbled mess.
It's always been. I agree. And I've oftentimes not agreed with the canon. I personally... I don't know. I could possibly be more offended at the way they went with episodes 7, 8, and 9. I don't know if you ever read the Timothy Zahn series, the Heir to the Empire series, but that should have been episode 7, 8, and 9. I was waiting like 20 years for that to be episode 7, 8, 9.
And we never got that. There is, however, a YouTuber who's doing like CGI recreation of those books, like an adaptation. It's pretty good so far.
I'm gonna have to check that out.
It's worth your time at least. Just check it out. If you don't like the first bit that you see of it, you're probably not going to like the rest because it's just one guy and he's doing it with sort of a limited stuff. But it's still really cool to see these books that I read quite a bit. It's been reused over and over, been redone in that way. But anyway, so that's Kenobi. I'm glad I saw it, and I think there are a lot of good things there. It's enough that I would recommend it. But compared to what we could have gotten, this is not as good. Writing needs to be tuned up. Get Deborah Cho back for season 2 if we ever get that. I am not averse to a season 2. I wouldn't say no more than 3 seasons. 1, 2, 3, and then you're done. Then you are done. Then you are done. But I can't help but wonder, we've seen a similar problem with the Book of Boba Fett. Something that seems to lack, not direction necessarily, but a clear vision. And I can't help but wondering if the fish is actually stinking from the head. But that is pure speculation. We don't
I don't know.
What we do know...
I don't know about that. I agree. Boba Fett was a little disappointing compared to the first 2 seasons of Mando, but not disappointing in the point that I wouldn't recommend it, because I would recommend it. I think it's good. But there was a little lack of direction towards the beginning of the season. But I think they pulled it together at the end. And again, as far as Kenobi goes, I would recommend this to anybody who is already a fan of Star Wars. Not already.
Yes. This is not going to bring in new audiences, but in fairness, it's not built for new audiences. Right. It's fan service was the word I use, and they appear to do that quite a bit because they are banking on us being familiar with these characters. And that's not bad. That's okay. That's the whole great thing about having a franchise like this. Imagine if we started every Marvel movie with a reintroduction of all those characters. Like, no, it's at this point required reading. If you're not familiar, that's on you. Right. So it can be good. It can be good in places, but let me just put it this way. I'm glad it was only 6 episodes. Let me put it that way. Do we have any other final thoughts, Craig?
I No, I think we covered everything. We'll have to wait and see what happens as far as season 2 goes. And again, I would recommend this to anybody who's already a fan of Star Wars. If you've never watched Star Wars before, it's not for you, I don't think.
No. And that's okay. Not everything has to be for everyone. Broad audiences, I hope students are starting to realise, are starting to be the death of a lot of things. The more broad you make, the less people are interested, especially when it comes to franchises like this. But that's a topic for another day. On that note, I think we're going to end the show. Thank you very much, Craig, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me once again. Appreciate you.
And if you enjoyed the show, Capers, please tell your friends, shout it from the rooftops. And if you haven't already, go back and listen to some of our other super episodes. Like our last episode we just did featuring Craig. Check that out. It was only last week. You can find it. And you can listen to the show on iTunes, YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Music, or at podcapers.com. If you want to get in touch with us, suggest show topics, or maybe come on the show yourself, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at AP2HYC. Thank you very much to Dan Harris for our logo, the lovely microphone with the brand new 3D glasses. Those are mine. And thank you for listening. This has been Podcapers, the official podcast of a place to hang your cape. Cue the music!